Hi. There's a few things to cover in this one. Firstly, is a more personal sort of angle based on this channel itself and an approach that I'm going to take. And secondly, is about the story I'm covering, and by covering, I mean talking about, which is Tucker Carlson's trip to Moscow. Okay, there's a number of things to address here, so bear with me. Um, Firstly, I'll talk about the more personal one because it's important. And it's important to lay out my reasoning for why I am going to take this approach. So the video I made about Tucker Carlson, it got a lot of animosity and a lot of negative responses. And when I make a video about any polarizing topic, I know that's a possibility. I've always said that I do not expect my channel to be an echo chamber. And actually, if I had a situation where people were always agreeing with me, I'd be a little bit suspicious of that. I'd wonder what's it's a little bit strange. Like I don't know everything. I'm not right about everything, so I'd be a little bit suspicious of that. But the overall feedback on my channel is positive. It would be about 70-30, roughly speaking, positive, negative comments. But occasionally there are videos like that that will get animosity. But one of my subscribers has pointed out, and I'm sure he won't mind if I don't name him, because I don't want him to be trolled by these people. But he pointed out that it was suspicious that that particular video attracted so many dodgy accounts and so many questionable. Yeah, and I got thinking about that and I thought, well, actually, that is a bit suspicious. Um, Now, the thing about these sort of accounts is it could be several things. They could be Russian bots, because it is well known that the Kremlin has utilized this technique in the past and probably still does, of getting fake accounts to sort of spread disinformation and sow up the seed of discord within the West. Now, I'm a small channel. I'm not an important channel, so would they bother targeting me? I don't know. It could just be people who haven't got around to getting a proper account. I remember when I started off my channel, or way back when I first got a YouTube account, I didn't have the ability to upload videos, so I could only comment on videos at that time. And it may well be that they're simply in that position. There's a few of them that I think really are Americans and Westerners, but still have a very flawed moral compass because they're Putin supporters. Um, but basically, I blocked comments now on that video, and you know I'm very well aware that that's a double-edged sword, because if you are promoting democracy and you're promoting liberty and so on, and then you block comments, it leaves you open to the charge of hypocrisy. It leaves you open to the charge that, oh, you're censoring those opinions that you don't like. Well, people are free to look at my track record. They're free to look at the thousands, literally thousands of videos I have. And there are many, many, many comments disagreeing with me and challenging me over the years. Many. And I've never deleted them. I've never censored them. But, life is short. And I do feel that if there is a large number of accounts on one particular video that look questionable, that's that raises issues. Now, am I saying there's a security issue? Not necessarily. I have been hacked before, not necessarily in that context, but quite frankly, if there's any chance of that happening, then it's not worth the risk. I want this channel to stay up, and I want to continue doing what I'm doing. And I'm not suggesting that's about to happen. Another reason is frankly an ideological one, and it is that I do not see why I should allow my channel to become a platform for Putin propagandists. And my reasoning is that if Putin's critics are not allowed a voice in Russia, why the hell should I give Putin supporters a voice on my little channel? This isn't a nation state. This isn't a government. This is my personal channel. And, it's not simply a case that I find the reviews repugnant, which I do. It's it's more importantly a case of, is this actually doing anything beneficial? Because Those people can upload their own videos, and I invite them to do that if they think that their voices are being silenced. Nothing's stopping them from uploading retorts to me or, uploading their own content. Notably, most of them have no content. So this is all very significant. This isn't like people who have a name and a photograph and pro-Putin videos online, although some of them do. Most of them are faceless, they're anonymous. So why should I give a platform to such people? Now, I'm not saying, I want to be clear on this, I'm not saying if someone doesn't have a profile picture and no content, then they're therefore a Russian bot. Like I say, some people just don't get round to it, or they are an introverted person or something like that. But frankly, if they're going to come to my channel and attack me, and some of them have had the audacity to say, I challenge you to back this up. I mean, as if the onus is on me when they're the ones that are not showing their face. I have said what I believe. Now, on the point about Tucker Carlson, his lies are provable because he has clearly stated no Western journalist has interviewed Putin. Now, that is a lie because in 2014, Andrew Marr of the BBC, a far superior journalist to Tucker Carlson, did interview Putin. And I will put a link to prove that. I'll put the interview up. I think what's really happening here is that Carlson is absolutely a Putin supporter. There's no question about that because his positions over the years have showed it. His open advocacy of Putin, his suggestion that we're backing the wrong side regarding the Ukraine war, etc., it marks him out. Even his former employer, Fox News, has said this guy doesn't tell the truth. So, CNN's responded, Christian Amanpour and Abby Phillip, and I can see where there's an inherent problem there because, of course, people will say, oh, well, the mainstream media is attacking this brave pursuer of truth. But they have to set the record straight. As Christian Amanpour pointed out, CNN has approached Putin over the years. I'm not sure CNN's ever interviewed Putin if they've ever got an interview, but even Dmitry Peskov, Putin's own spokesman, has said that Carlson's claim doesn't stack up. That's coming from Putin's own spokesman. And then you get into questions about, well, what about Russian journalists who are denied a voice? What about Russian journalists who not only cannot interview Putin, they are then put into exile because their lives are in danger? And that's no hot air. Anna Politkovskaya, a woman whose book I actually have, was found murdered. And, at the time it was blamed on kind of shady gangsters. But there is a very, very long trajectory of anti-Putin critics, whether they be journalists or politicians, ending up either murdered and human rights activists for that matter, murdered, forced into exile, imprisoned under charges of corruption. There's a long, long track record of this, and it is just the fundamental nature of a brutal dictatorship. There's 2 American journalists currently languishing in Russian prisons. So for Carlson to swoop in there and act like he's some sort of brave pursuer of truth, I think he's a piece of shit, to be quite honest. I have to be careful with language because I don't want to be sanctioned by YouTube, but that's honestly how I feel about it. I think he is a slimeball, and I think what he is doing here is knowingly pandering to the Russian dictator. I mean, he says he just wants the American people to hear both sides. If that's the case, then he would use his leverage to say, I want an interview with Alexei Navalny, Russia's only really serious opposition candidate. By serious, I mean who's got significant support. Of course, he's in a prison in the Arctic Circle. So, will he be granted such an interview? He could at least try. If Carlson really claims that he is a professional journalist just doing his job, then he would try to do that. He would be interviewing President Zelensky. He would be interviewing Ukrainians. But the truth is, Tucker Carlson is a shameless Putin propagandist. And I would say, he should really have some integrity and move to Russia if he believes as strongly as he does. And he believes the American mainstream media, as he put it, is just ugly propaganda regarding the Ukraine war. Why the hell doesn't he just go and join a Russian network and be done with it? And preferably settle in Moscow. Because I think these Putin propagandists are I think part of them knows deep down that Russia is not a country they really want to live in, despite all their, pontificating about Putin being on the ideologically right side of culture wars, because this gets into, the domestic narrative of when you get the American left who don't really help matters when they push things like, trans ideology and all the rest of it. Well, they, as in Tucker Carlson and other pro-Putin conservatives, will look at that and say, oh, Putin's the answer to this. Putin's offering an alternative. It's almost like they want Putin as Trump's running mate this November. It's actually quite sickening. But to me, the worst thing about all of this is not just that they are pandering to a hostile foreign tyrant. It's the fact that there are Russians, courageous Russian journalists who have been murdered, forced into exile. And then you have Carlson swooping in and claiming he's just letting Putin's voice be told. It's beyond sickening. It's not just that Putin has already had a voice, it's Russia itself. Russia was a member of the G8. A fact that the likes of Tucker Carlson will conveniently forget. Russia was brought in to, work with Western countries on an equal footing. But it comes down to, you could blame successive American presidents and British prime ministers and other Western leaders, or you can consider actually the problem is the Russian dictator and his irredentist obsessions. And his, gangster regime, because that's what it is. I quoted the journalist Luke Harding. I'll show that book again because it's an important point. Bear with me a second. This is a real journalist. This is a journalist who has backbone. This is a journalist who actually took risks. The FSCP probed him when he was in Russia, and that's before things were even really bad. Um, that is, this lady, Anna Politkovskaya, I have a book by her, murdered. Natalia Estimirova, Chechen human rights activist, murdered. And who's governing Chechnya now? Ramzan Kadyrov, Putin's thug, who presides even over an even more brutal regime than Russia proper. This is the sort of people that Putin has in his fold. This is the sort of people that Tucker Carlson wants to defend. Pass me the sick bucket. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon, but I'll put a link to that Andrew Marr interview because it directly counters what they're claiming. In a way, this story's got too much coverage, and that's kind of, I don't think Tucker Carlson should get so much attention in a way. He clearly craves attention, and unfortunately, it is what it is. You have an American pundit, famous American pundit, who has went out of his way to pander to the Russian tyrant. He's not going to ask those questions. To be quite honest, I'm not even going to watch the interview because I just cannot believe that he is going to ask the right questions. Like I say, if I'm wrong about that, I'll retract that. Someone shows a clip showing Tucker Carlson saying, Mr. Putin, how do you explain the lack of press freedom in Russia? He's not going to do it. All it's going to be is a grovel fest. Now, I have no interest in watching that. That's not journalism. And it's an abuse of power, actually, because Tucker Carlson's in a powerful position, and he's abusing that power by failing to do what he's meant to do as a journalist, which is to ask tough questions. What it's going to be is a bit like when Oliver Stone visited Putin. It's just going to be this kind of, it's like if you have a rock star and one of their fans gets to meet them backstage, that's what it's going to be like. This is a gift for Putin. And why is Putin granted the interview? Because he knows. He knows that Tucker Carlson is a useful tool for him. It's, think about it. We're in an election year, and you get an American pundit who goes over there to basically spin Putin's propaganda. The situation right now with Ukraine is very difficult because there is war fatigue in the West. There are questions about funding, and I understand that. It's going into billions. But I personally think it would be a very, very grave mistake for the West to give up support for Ukraine. Rishi Sunak was right when he said this is like a 1942 moment. There must have been points in World War II where there were some who really thought that we could, it would be better to just negotiate with Hitler. In fact, Lord Halifax took that position. He wanted to go through Mussolini and negotiate with Hitler. Well, I'm not saying Putin's Hitler, but I think he is the biggest threat to Europe since Hitler, and I don't think that's hyperbole. Um, and I think that being in an election year, the real danger here would be that Russia will see this year as being an even bigger gateway to interfere in American democracy than 2016 or 2020. And I think there's a really strong chance of that happening. I think Trump cannot be trusted for a second. Trump's ideology is clear. Trump's wanted to disband NATO. Trump has refused to condemn Putin unequivocally. He's refused to condemn the invasion of Ukraine. In fact, on the day of the invasion, he called it a genius move. I think Trump is beneath contempt, and I'm genuinely quite concerned about the direction this is going. Unfortunately, Biden's age shows, so he's far from an ideal candidate. But for myself, for this channel, I'm not saying that as soon as I see a pro-Putin comment on one of my videos, I'm going to just block the comments. That is not what I'm saying. But when I get a situation where there's this kind of trajectory of fake accounts of pro-Putin comments on one particular video and they seem to gravitate in, then yes, I'm going to have to take that approach because it is not worth the risk. And I'm not going to give those people a platform. I refuse to do it. Why the hell should I? When they're supporting a system that denies the voice of Russian dissidents and which locks up American journalists and trumped up charges. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to aid the enemy. So, as for this particular video, I'll leave the comments open on this. But again, if it attracts those people, I'll see what the ratio is. If I get some of my subscribers coming out and endorsing this, the stance that I'm taking, then I'll leave the comment section open. But if it's going to be the same as the Tucker Carlson video, then I'll take the same approach with this. But just to be clear, this is not going to be like I'm going to become, every time I make a contentious video, I'm just going to censor. I don't want to go down that path, and I've not taken this decision lightly. But with what my subscriber pointed out, I think he made a good point. It was suspicious that that particular video, seemed to attract so much animosity. And, it's not like it had 150 views, so it's not like it corresponds with the number of views. It's kind of an average video in terms of viewership, so a little bit above average, but that's the approach I'm going to take. I am not going to give these people a platform. And as for Tucker Carlson, the man's a liar, and I think he's an absolute disgrace. Christian Amanpour and Abby Phillip are absolutely correct. But like I say, you could point this out to these people, and it's like there's a cognitive disassociation. You can show them the basic facts, and they won't accept it. You could show them, and as I will do in this video, the interview with Andrew Marr and Putin in 2014. But you could show them that, and they'll